All right.
Now, since I generally run these real loose, let me do this before I forget. How about you introduce yourself to everybody, and we'll go from there.
Hi, so my name is Kajan Johnson. I was a fighter in the UFC for, 4 years. I started fighting professionally in 2002 and just actually recently retired.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're done, huh? So what?
Yeah.
That makes this conversation even more interesting. So,
yeah, this is probably the first time I've actually said that in an interview. So it's a breaking story.
That is a breaking story, man. No, but that's no, really, that is actually a lot more interesting, at least for me, because I like, I think the reason that people follow my content is because I kind of treat the whole, I try to kind of put myself in the position of the people who are involved in all these things, and then kind of talk about it, because I've always been pretty good at doing that. And
got you.
The story's the same when someone has an upcoming fight, but a dude who just retired and you're trying to wrap your brain around what that means, what you're going to do, that's actually really fascinating. But let's start. Actually, I wanted to ask you one thing though, because when I was kind of running through your career, I saw there was something actually like pretty interesting that I wanted to ask about, which was just that, like, it looked like when you started out, you started out kind of like a 50-50 fighter right up until a certain point, and then you started running through guys. And I was really curious, kind of what happened, like what was the difference where it's like, what happened?
Yeah, there were a couple different changes there. So until about like 2005, I was based in Prince George, which there's not a whole lot of high level coaching up there. There wasn't a whole lot of technical knowledge. I had my coach, obviously Bill Mahood, and I've been with him for the duration of my career. He's been in my corner I'm pretty sure every single fight that I've ever had. So it was me and him, and we would do our work, but it like he was still learning. He didn't have the knowledge like of wrestling, especially wrestling, of jiu-jitsu, of like high level boxing. We didn't have that knowledge, right? We pretty much knew like work hard and throw straight punches and be tough, and that was our philosophy. And so I ended up breaking my face in like 5 places in one fight against Jesse Bonsfeld in 2005.
What'd you get hit?
I was shooting, and he's a southpaw. He threw a left kick, like a body kick, at the same time I was shooting, and I ran into the knee of the kick. Yeah, I just shattered everything, and then I ended up so that was the orbital. There's like 3 breaks there, and then I kept fighting. Finished that round. I actually won that round, as weird as that is, and broke his nose at the end of that round. And then second round,
that fucking probably hurt more than your face.
Yeah, it fucking sucked.
Fucking nose breaks.
Yeah, I ended up breaking my nose later on in the fight. And,
okay.
And then they stopped the fight on the stool. But because of that, I had to like take a look at myself and like ask myself, like, is this what you want to do? Right? Is this because the game just got super real for me all of a sudden? I was just kind of playing around with it, like doing it for fun. And then that was when it became like more of a job and not, or a career, and less of a hobby. So I took it seriously. I moved down to Vancouver, and I started working with Revolution Fight Team and at the Fortress, which was populated by like me, Calder Gill, Caleb Starnes, Bibiano Fernandez, Jose Pele, Landy John. We had like Tony Pep as a boxing coach, Nick Iguala as a wrestling coach. Like, it was a very, very high level team. Bill actually ended up following me down as well, and ended up managing the team.
Let me pause you right there and ask one question, which is like, like for the people who don't have experience, kind of like actually training, like, do you think that you could exaggerate how critical it is to have guys to spar against who are elite level guys, and how big the impact is on your game?
Yeah, if you don't have people around you that you're able to test yourself against, then it's going to be really, really difficult for you to achieve a high level in this sport, just because like all of the reaction times and everything need to be so ingrained. So it's like, and it wasn't even just having the sparring partners. Like, sparring partners are one thing, but having somebody to give you information, like, you're not going to get better without more information. You can get a little bit better fitness. You can like just get more experience. But unless you have information, you're not going to improve, at least not drastically. Like
especially like kind of in like the grappling side where it's very, very kind of like if this then that, you know, like I was talking to a guy yesterday who's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and like my background is in striking, so I'm not going to sit here and pretend to know what if equals this that, but I do understand very clearly, like, you know, when you get a guy to a complex submission, you're at like step 8 of 9, you know, like where it's like it's a step by step thing, and how it really is. It's, I mean, it's like software engineering, you know. It's like, well, that's actually a bad example, but just, you know, the guy puts his hand here, then that leaves him open there, and it's all like, I mean, without knowing what those things are, how are you gonna how are you gonna learn?
Yeah, you can't just make it up, right? So it helped me a great deal physically, and somewhat mentally as well. But I feel like the emotional development, the mental development, the spiritual development were still a little bit underworked. So after I had two fights. One was because once I moved down to Vancouver, I went on a bit of a run. Like, I think I did 6 in a row or something, finishing them all in the first round. Like, I was really like building momentum. But it took the fight against Rory McDonald and then the following fight against Steve Claveau for me to really understand that I hadn't really worked on the emotional side of fighting, the mental side of fighting, and the spiritual side of fighting.
Well, Rory's a fucking monster, and he was what year was that?
That was 2007.
Yeah, he's I mean, the guy's been a monster since he was born.
Yeah.
Damn, 2007?
Yeah, it's a long time ago, yeah.
Rory was, what?
He was fighting at 155. Yeah, so I believe he first started fighting. Like, he had his first fight. I actually cornered against him his first fight. He fought one of our students from PG Fight Club, and that was, I think, 2004. So this is 3 years into his career. It was like 7-0 or something like that. And yeah, he'd been training for years before that. I think he started training at like 13 or 14, had his first fight at 16, and then was fighting like once or twice a year from there.
Yeah, I remember he was a prodigy from the beginning, where everybody was talking about him, that he was into the next thing. And like, there was just something about, you know, the fight game in general is like a combination of skills, luck, outcomes, and promotion. And like, there's just some people who have like all the pieces, and then there's one little thing that's out of place and they don't get all the way. We're like, if Rory had the same personality as like Kevin Lee, he would have been an absolute megastar.
Yeah.
Like, if Mike Perry had the skills of Rory McDonald, he'd be a megastar. But it's like, Rory's got all the fight skills, and
totally.
He's just one of those like Spartan guys that you can just see is like, he almost like doesn't have room to have a big personality because he's so, I don't know if I'm describing that well, but he's just like,
he's very focused, and like he's like an old school MMA fighter. He's not here for like glitz and glamour and money. He's not here for any of that. He enjoys the process of fighting. He would probably rather fight someone in the middle of nowhere with no one else around, no judges, no nothing, just me doing it. Go fight in a forest somewhere. He would probably enjoy that more than being involved in the actual MMA business that it is.
I totally agree with that. There are certain guys that you imagine them in that environment and you're like, fuck, dude, that's what that guy was born to do. Like Tony Ferguson, I think someone took a time machine and went back to like, you know, Aztec times, grabbed the guy who had fought 100 guys to death in different tribes, and they were like, let's just bring this guy up and see how he does in the octagon as an experiment. And then that's Tony Ferguson, man. Like, he's just like fucking monster, dude. Like,
he's a fucking beast, bro. The amount of damage that he can withstand and continue to move forward and not show real signs, not give the opponent tells that he's hurt. It's fucking incredible. Unfortunately, that doesn't lead to good places.
No, not at all. How do you think he's going to recover after that last fight? Because like I that's another thing I talk about on the channel a lot. I try to like talk about the things that a lot of people like kind of don't think about, and I'm like, dude, think about the human body as it is, man. Like, you have a spinal cord, you have muscles, you have tendons, you have nerve endings that connect to your brain, and just imagine that as a machine that needs to work. And then imagine Justin Gaethje tenderizing that, you know, and it's like, that's why, like, when guys take, like, there are certain fights where guys take a level of punishment that I don't believe you can ever fully recover from. Like Rory McDonald against Robbie Lawler in that fight, same thing. I think actually Kelvin Gastelum in the fight against Israel Adesanya, I don't think he ever is going to come all the way back. Tony Ferguson against Gaethje, he's 37 years old, and that's as much damage as a human body can take without collapsing on itself. And it's funny because you bring up the spiritual side of fighting, and so I'll ask you about this too. Like, I think that Tony Ferguson, whether consciously or unconsciously, has figured out a way to disconnect his brain from his body. Like, I'm kind of aware of people being able to do this just because I can, but not on purpose. Like, where I'll literally be sitting like in the most contorted, bizarre position where anyone would be completely uncomfortable. But if I'm thinking about something deep, like, I'm unaware that I'm like in a position that it's totally. And so I think about that related to how a person like Tony could take punishment like that, continue to go forward. And I feel like maybe he's figured out a way to intentionally disconnect from his body in a way or something like that. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah, possible. I feel like also just belief is so important and is something that's so overlooked. And like Tony's belief in himself is delusional.
Yep.
You know, but that's fucking powerful if it's real, right? If it's real fucking delusion, it's really powerful.
Then it almost becomes not delusion.
Yeah, exactly, because you believe it so wholeheartedly that it becomes true. So if you believe 1,000,000% that you cannot be hurt, it's gonna take so much more to hurt you than somebody that's like going in with all that fear of like, oh shit, I can't get touched by this guy.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Those shots for that guy are gonna fucking hurt.
Yeah,
and not to say they don't damage the person that has that delusional self-belief, but when it's as prevalent as it is with Tony, and I don't know exactly how stable he is. I fear for his mental state a little bit.
I fear for his future, like post-fighting for sure.
Yeah, definitely. But
his ability.
No, I've been attempting for some time to do DMT, but I still haven't done any. I did do ayahuasca once, but because I was using cannabis so heavily at the time, I was told that they cancel each other out. So
really,
when I did do ayahuasca, I didn't really feel any of the effects of it.
So I just got it yesterday, and nice. You know, I don't have a plan for when I'm going to do it. You know, like it's something that obviously I'm like, it's like first is step one. I know I'm going to do it. Step two is acquiring it. And then step three is figuring out the perfect environment to actually do it in. And cause obviously I know it's not like, it's not something to fuck around with. Obviously it's like,
no,
you know, it's like something big in my life. And I want to make sure that I'm, you know, safe when I do it. The reason why I asked that is because when I was listening to oh God, what's his name? He's like one of the best bodybuilders of all time. Dorian Yates was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he's a big proponent of DMT. And he was saying that like, he thinks that, you know, his kind of like broader understanding of how the world actually, you know, like people talk about The Secret and like, you know, the law of attraction. And I absolutely believe that there is that is true to a point. I mean, like you can't sit in your house and go, you know, geez, I'm visualizing, you know, that I'm going to become a Hollywood actor and have no action tied to it. Like that's not how it works.
Definitely not.
But what Dorian Yates was saying was that like, it's like there's information that comes through, and then you are this kind of vehicle for taking that information, and then you're the filter, which then kind of like creates the world around you. Like he did a really good job of explaining it, where I'm like, okay, that makes perfect sense. And that delusional belief is like, it's like that, you know?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's very, it is like the power of intention, the power of like positivity. It's all the same thing. And it's interesting to me how so many of these things like that people are talking about and have been talking about for a long time, how they all like intersect. It's very, very interesting to me.
You ever played blackjack?
No, I'm not a big cards guy. I'm not a big games guy, to be honest. Like, I don't play video games. I don't play cards of any type. How to play like blackjack or like poker or anything. Yeah. But why do you
bring it up is because it is absolutely, I have this, it's a perfect example of exactly what we're talking about, which is I play a lot of blackjack. My wife and I mean, not like a lot like day to day, but when we go like to Vegas or go wherever, someone goes to casino, my wife and I, that is what we do. We'll like have drinks and play blackjack. We've played fucking thousands of hours of blackjack.
Okay.
There is one absolute 100% truth, which is when a person is losing and they're angry and they take this last bet that happens all the time, like all the fucking time, and they take like this big stack, it's their whole stack, and they push it in mad, and they're like, fuck it. They never win, and I'm talking fucking never. 0%. I'm talking, I've probably seen that happen 1,000 times, and they're 0 for 1,000, you know?
Yeah.
Literally 0 for 1,000. And so like, unless someone can explain to me how that statistically could be the case, because I'm not exaggerating, fucking never. They never, ever win. Then you're going to have to accept that there's some kind of control in what outcomes are.
Definitely, man. Your thoughts become your reality. So if you're upset that you're losing, your focus is on losing. So when you go to make that bet, you're not going to fucking win, man.
You're not.
You can't win with a losing mindset.
You already know you're going to lose before they deal the cards.
Yeah. And you're just like, fuck it. I'm just going to lose then.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. Yeah. The only thing that can make me not mad is if I win this huge fucking bet. Let's do it. Let's go. I know I'm going to lose. Fuck. And like a lot of times it's like a devastating loss too, where they get dealt a 20, the dealer has 16, which is like your absolute dream deal. And then the dealer will hit 21 and it's like, oh. Yeah, man.
It's very interesting, man, the way the world works.
It is.
The older I get, the more interesting it is.
Yeah. So what are you going to do? Like, what are you
well, I opened I have a partner, and we opened a gym 2016. We opened a gym, so we've been like building this thing for a few years now, and it's getting to a good level. But I feel like I just retired during quarantine. I was still actively pursuing fighting. It was just difficult for me to find an organization that was down to take me.
Well, UFC is really the only one that's like doing anything for real right now. You know, it's like it's a tough time to do business at all. You know, it's like it's just so hard. And Bellator, they just did a show and it did terrible, which is kind of it's kind of surprising. I mean, just in terms of like viewership.
Yeah,
it's kind of surprising actually, but like I don't know, if I was gonna tell Scott Coker what to do, I would literally be like, look, dude, like this whole thing has shocked the world. You need a shock the system card where you put like all your best guys on the same card and promote just so that everybody knows. Up, you know? Yeah,
totally. I didn't even know that card was running until like that day. I had no idea that Bellator was even doing things, right? So yeah, they definitely need to pull like a big dick kind of move and just like, these are gonna be all our fucking guys. Let's generate as much interest as possible.
They need a better TV deal too, man. Paramount, it's not Paramount. They've got another good show. Yellowstone's a good show on there, but like they need dude, MMA is a big fucking deal now. Like get a deal with Fox doesn't have it anymore. You know, get a deal with Fox or. I don't know if it would work since Fox used to have like UFC, but like NBC, somebody should do a deal with Bellator, right?
Totally, you would think so. Yeah. But yeah. So during quarantine, I had so much time to think, right? And like I've just been so connected and like so living on this goal that I set fucking almost 20 years ago. Like I'm gonna be the greatest martial artist that ever lived, right? So for me, that was okay. First, I need to become the UFC champion. I tried to do that. I got kind of close, and then that got thrown out the window. So now I had no longer had the ability to do that. Then after that is coaching. Okay, so I'm going to build world champions.
Mm-hmm.
right? And then also I've wanted to go into some sort of film, because I feel like one of the greatest martial artists of all time was Bruce Lee. And he taught at a school, okay? He fought. There's not the same types of competition that there back then as there is now, but was actively competing. And he also did movies. So that was kind of the recipe. But during quarantine, I just had a whole bunch of time to think and like see what I actually wanted to do. Like, with nothing to do, with zero responsibilities, what does my body crave right now?
Mm-hmm.
And it actually, to be honest, it wasn't training. I wasn't like, oh shit, I need to be training right now. I need to be like training my guys. Like, everybody needs to be working hard. Like, we've got all these goals. Like, that wasn't it. It was just
like I need to do DMT, lay down and learn about the world.
Yeah, right. I was like doing like mushrooms and skateboarding and like fishing and just doing things that really had no goal attached to them. So it gave me a lot of perspective, and I realized that I care about helping people a whole lot more than I care about creating world champions, right? So if I am helping some people, like I have students that their aspiration is to be the world champion. And if I can assist them in that, then that's a fucking blessing to me. But I'm not going to be like trying to force people or try to get people that want that. Like, oh yeah, because I need champions, so I need my students to be champions, or I need to attract students that want to be champions. That's not a fucking thing anymore. So what I'm doing is I'm starting to do a lot more activist work in order to try to make the world a better place. So I've been working with, I've been involved in some of these Black Lives Matter protests and stuff like that. But I've also been,
you can go beat up anybody who tries to burn down a building. You're like, dude, that's not what we're doing here.
Yeah. Or some like racist Nazi who decides to like attack Black Lives Matter protesters,
those guys.
Right? Yeah.
Are you guys getting are you guys actually finding that? Like, so when you guys are out in the streets, are you guys getting like are like fucking like white supremacists? Are they actually coming out in the streets and then banging with you guys?
I haven't seen it. We've seen like one little group in the Black Lives Matter protests. We don't see it as much because I'm in Vancouver, right? So it's a pretty like liberal, left-wing yoga meditation type community. Yeah. Whereas if you go anywhere else in the country, especially if you're going towards the prairies or you're going north,
you're in Vancouver. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
when I said yoga buildings, I'm thinking of the United States, where it's like it's almost, it's so bizarre, like, because I can't tell, like, I know for sure that there is it's like you have these elements that are working out. It's like you have people who have genuine issues that they want to address and have a conversation about, and then you have extremists on both sides, and it's almost impossible to tell them apart. Like, where, like, as an example, when they had the thing in the Chaz, not the thing in the Chaz, in Oakland, and there was a security guard during a protest who got shot, and everyone was like, oh, it must be Antifa extremists. And I watched a video of it, and I was like, that's a right-wing group that's framing them, because it was so coordinated. It was like a white van that came up and they opened the door. It looked like a military operation, Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what it was. It was like an extremist right-wing group that did it, to make it look like it was Antifa. And then but then at the same time, Antifa is burning down buildings and like throwing Molotov cocktails at cops. And so I'm just like, how about we just take these two groups and just get them the fuck out of the conversation completely? Like, if what you want to do is like attack someone or burn something down, like, just, I don't know, like they should go meet each other somewhere else so that everybody who wants to actually figure out solutions can like have a conversation.
Yeah, I hear you. And we do experience some of the extremism here. And it, generally speaking, though, it's not towards Black people, from my experience anyway. Like, there is definitely systemic racism that exists in Canada. There is definitely overt racism that exists in Canada. But for the most part, from what I've seen, it's against First Nations peoples. It's against Indigenous peoples.
Really?
And that happens from everywhere from the government to the citizen, right? So right now...
Why do you think that is?
Why do I think that is? Mainly because Canada is addicted to resources. Canada is addicted to Indigenous resources, and most people are not educated on the subject. They don't really understand how Canada was founded. They don't understand, especially in British Columbia, because we're in a different situation. There was a lot of treaties that have been signed, and the government, the Canadian corporation, has not held up their end of the treaty. But regardless, there is at least a treaty that has happened. Whereas in British Columbia, where I live, it is 100% unceded, unsurrendered territory. It's never been lost in war. It's never been signed over. It's never been sold. So the title actually, which is ruled by the Supreme Court of Canada, the title actually lies collectively with Indigenous people. Yet,
are they organized? Do they have organizations that are kind of positioning themselves to leverage that?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. There's been many actions that have happened throughout the country in the last few years in order to do that. Unistoten being one, which was a camp that was placed on Indigenous land in order for Indigenous people to occupy their own territories on the Wet'suwet'en territory up north by where I was raised. And that has unfortunately been completely dismantled by the RCMP. And now we have the Tiny House Warriors who are camping on the Trans Mountain Pipeline in the Secwepemc Nation. They're camping on Trans Mountain Pipeline where they want to build a 1,000-person man camp. So I just actually was up there 2 weeks ago because there was a hate rally that was planned against the Tiny House Warriors, where a lot of like different Nazis and white supremacist groups were planning on doing a whole bunch of bad shit. So me and a group of men and women all went up to support, and we were able to stand there and stop that from happening. Unfortunately,
what were they planning to do?
What were they planning to do? Just have a KKK rally, which just allows for violence to happen. It's a very inflammatory situation. So things that have happened in the past and right after we left, actually. So we were up there in order to stop anything from happening. White supremacists would drive by and film us and drive by and just yell racial slurs and stuff, but they would keep going because they saw that it's not just women and children up here now. There's like men, right? So there's going to be there's actually a consequence to some of the actions that they were planning on doing. As soon as we left, the day after we left one guy up there, and so there's like, I don't know, 5, 6 women and like 2 men because they had a man in the camp already. So as soon as we left, like 6 Nazis tried to storm the camp. And when our man that was up there attempted to stop them, they tried to run him over with their car, right? Like they've done a bunch of this type of stuff in the past where they've like driven through barricades and ripped around and then stolen trucks that belonged to the land defenders up there and like ran them into their houses and ran them into poles and then left them.
So this is Canadian KKK? I didn't even know that the KKK was up there.
Oh, definitely. Well, it was like kind of, our country was pretty much founded on white supremacy, right? Like colonization is a process that only happens, at least in North America, through white supremacy, right? White supremacist belief systems, right? Like you can't just kill off an entire people and then occupy their lands if you don't believe that their lives are less valuable than yours because of the color of their skin or their nationality or whatever. Yeah. You know, that doesn't really happen. Although it's still happening throughout the world in places like Israel and their annexation of the West Bank and all this fucking bullshit, right? But it's alive and well in Canada, especially in the Canadian North. The Canadian North, that's where I grew up, right? Like I didn't grow up in Vancouver. I grew up in Burns Lake, which is like a 2,000 person town, mill town, all either Caucasian or First Nations. I was like, me and my sisters were the only Black people. And so I grew up there. I grew up in Prince George, which is like a 100,000 person town, very similar mill town.
They break your balls up there?
Like crazy, bro. Like fucking crazy.
That's why you turned into a finely tuned instrument of destruction.
Yeah, of protection, that's for sure. and destroy.
I honestly believe that like a huge percentage of people who end up, you know, kind of built out of granite, you know, it's because they were fucked with when they were kids. For me, for sure. Like I was really small and I got picked on when I was younger and I fucking hated it. And then when I got big enough to decide what kind of person I wanted to be, you know, I decided that's, you know, I didn't ever want anyone to ever. I'm sure that when I smoke the DMT, like I'm going to realize that a huge part of how I carry myself is out of just being still like a fucking 5-year-old, or not 5, but like, you know, an 8 or 10-year-old still, you know, I'm expecting that to be, you know, a revelation, you know?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, it's amazing how like so many of us that have turned to martial arts and that have built ourselves to be unfuckwithable have usually endured a whole lot of either trauma or bullying or whatever in childhood.
Yeah, because like if your parent doesn't put you on it, how else does that become important to you?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's just through lived experience. Yeah.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's like, yeah, I mean, there's so much of this shit going on. I mean, not shit, but like, there's just so much, like, it's so crazy that it's like, that it's coinciding with this global pandemic. Like, it just feels like, and then it's just like thing on top of thing on top of thing. And then the explosion in Beirut the other day.
Yeah.
Looks like a
what the fuck was that about?
Dude, did you see that there was one just like that in Russia the next day? In Russia the next day.
What the fuck?
They were munition depots. And both they look just like the Beirut, and which would make sense if they're, you know, blowing up munition, you know, depots or whatever, but like
munitions, so that's like weaponry?
Yeah, like where they store, well, at least in Russia they said it was a munitions depot. Yeah, so where they would like store, like where the military would store a bunch of bombs and stuff. Like weapons. And in Beirut, they said that it was like whatever, this like glycerin, like a, you know, warehouse full of glycerin that can be fertilizer or be an explosive. But like, as an example, like when the Oklahoma City bombing happened, you know, when the guy, like when the white supremacist guy, they blew up the FBI building, and I'm sure you've seen the pictures of that. That bomb was the same stuff, and he fit everything that he needed for that bomb into a fucking van. So like, imagine what an entire warehouse of that shit would do. Because like when I saw it, what it looked like to me is I was like, that looks like a degraded tactical nuclear weapon. You know, like where, because like I know a lot about that stuff, and like there were these like tactical nuclear weapons that Russia had made that were literally a suitcase, and they lost them all. Like literally, we're talking like 90 of them completely. Like, so in the 90s, they, you know, there was like a big UN thing, and they were like, yeah, we have no idea where they are. And I believe that inconvenient truth is the basis for a lot of the really hardcore shit that the United States has done in the Middle East. Is I think that because if you know for sure you have 90 missing tactical nuclear weapons, and you know for sure that there's a group that is in the Middle East that's actively trying to acquire them so they can detonate them in the United States, you know, I think, first of all, you could never tell everyone that directly because people would flee the cities. And if you're in a position where you have to make really hard decisions, you're almost like, okay, well, that's a scenario that can't happen no matter what. Like, so, you know, maybe we take the gloves off and we got to go find them. Because anyway, but I know that like if not properly upkept or whatever, like nuclear weapons deteriorate, right? So like if the yield was supposed to be 12 kilotons, which is what they were, which is a little bit less than the Hiroshima bomb, and you don't take care of it for 30 years, 40 years, then maybe what you get is that Beirut thing, you know? I don't know. But again, I'm not saying that's what it was. That was just what I thought when I first saw it, because that was such a huge fucking explosion.
Yeah. I've never seen anything like that before.
Me neither, except nuclear tests.
Except for, nuclear fucking bombs from back in the day. Like, the fucking shockwave, dude, was like, yeah,
you know,
man.
I see it, and then like the car is driving, and then like you see it, and then boom, the car gets flipped over. You know, like you know, 3-4 seconds later. Did you see the George Floyd body cam video that just came out?
No, I didn't. That's fucking shit. That's
one thing, like,
crazy.
yeah, one thing that I like had always said throughout that whole thing was I was like, dude, the guy is 300 pounds. Can you imagine what it's like to be in fucking jail if you're 300 pounds? Like how claustrophobic that would be. Like,
Yeah.
like they don't make the cells any bigger for people who are huge.
Yeah,
know?
definitely.
And so like, people want to get into what his background was, whatever. And I'm just like, okay, that's sure. But like, I'm saying, think about what he's thinking. Like he's been to jail. He knows exactly what jail is like. He's so fucking broke that he has to use a fake money to try to get a sandwich. And then now he's facing going back to, and cause anyway, and like the body cam confirmed exactly that. Like he's fucking terrified. Like he's just like, I think the body cam video, honestly, it makes what the police did a little bit less heinous. Not really, because they shouldn't have had their knee on his neck no matter what. But also, it just really shows how tragic it is, man. Like, because the guy was fucking terrified. He keeps saying, I'm claustrophobic about getting into the cop car. But I know what he's thinking is he knows he's going back to jail. And it must just be horrifying to be that big and be in a cell. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. It's fucking.
Sure, I'm sure, but like that doesn't kill you, right? Like
no. The cop's guilty for sure. Like the cop's guilty, 100%.
Super fucking guilty.
But like the reason why he was on the ground is because he asked to be on the ground. But that doesn't matter. I mean, like, dude, the guy fucking. There's no reason to have your knee in his neck, and certainly not when the guy is telling you. I mean, look, like it actually doesn't take any responsibility out of the cops. More than anything, it just made me feel sick to my stomach again watching it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there's so much, man. And like most of the cops don't even turn their fucking body cams off. Like if they know that if they're gonna do something fucked up, they just turn that shit off. Because so much of this shit that's happened and there's like no body cam footage. Right? It's like it should be mandatory. They should not be able to turn those fucking things off.
Yeah, I actually don't disagree with that. I think that it's such a complicated issue because I personally am friends with tons of cops and every one of them is fucking aces, cool dudes that like they're not a racist bone in their body. Like we have common friends that it's just not what they are. And simultaneously, it's like one of those things where you think about like it's like you think about how impactful it is when you can actually see a thing, right? Like, like rather than like if you read about the George Floyd incident in a magazine, there's no way that you could really like be able to understand what it was versus seeing it. And that's a good thing and simultaneously a bad thing, because if you can string together 10, 15, 20 videos like that, it can make it look like you have an entire institution that is built around treating people that way. And everyone understandably is going to have this like visceral horror, like just like this cannot be reaction to it. And if you actually think about like the number of, it's like something like they have like 30 million interactions a year or something like some, that's not even right. Cause there are like a million cops. Anyway, it's just like point I'm making is it doesn't take very many bad apples to make it appear like the entire thing is a bad thing, And what my fear is that
I understand what you're saying there, but I'm not sure that I agree with it. I don't feel that the police forces that are currently in existence are good and should exist in the way that they do exist. I feel like the reason why they were founded continues to trickle down generation to generation to generation.
Oh, they're born to hunt slaves and that's still the case now?
I'm not saying that that's still the case now, but I'm saying that kind of a culture, right? Like that is a truth that they were birthed to hunt slaves, but then eventually we phased them out of that. But the people that were built to hunt slaves and the people that were phased out, like that must have happened in a couple generations, right? But these guys it's
also in different states too. Like that's the case in some states, and then it's not the case in other places. And listen, like I am fucking all for the conversation of like, how do we completely reformat the way that we police society? I think the drug war is ludicrous and leads to a ton of this stuff. Like, you know, if you look at, and yeah, I mean, honestly, I mean, I don't have any kind of adverse reaction to like, we should discuss how we structure law enforcement. My concern is around there are these elements in society that are really dangerous people who like rational people like you and I can have a conversation around how we think things should go. And if people try to solve this with a chainsaw as opposed to, you know, kind of working with what we have now and then, you know, kind of changing it and making it evolve, you know, if it's just kind of like, if these people are given open season, it's like, I can just see I mean, like, as an example, like what's, you know, the murder rates have gone up immensely in these places where they've kind of pulled police out of areas. And like, it's so complicated. Like I'm hearing myself talking. Normally I kind of have like a place that I'm going, and like, this is so complicated that I honestly can't even drive the train where I'm trying to get it. Cause there's so many.
I understand what you're saying. I think that like, we should look at the countries that don't have the issues that we have, right? If we look at like the Switzerlands of the world, the Germanys of the world, the death rate, like the death by police rate is so vastly lower than the death rate, both in Canada and the States, by police. And I feel like one huge difference there is the amount of training that it takes to be a police officer.
Dude, why do the police not have jiu-jitsu training? Why do they not have jiu-jitsu training?
Yeah, it's
most common sense thing ever, dude.
It's like the dumbest fucking thing that I've ever fucking heard. And like, just the amount of time that it takes, right? Like some of these places, it's like 3 years to be a cop. And you got to know a shitload about the law. You got to know a shitload about how to handle yourself, conflict de-escalation, hand-to-hand combat. Like there's so much to it. You're not fucking learning it in a year or 6 weeks, like some places. Like that's insane.
And then they never revisit the training. It's like, you know, like I did an interview with Dean Lister, you know, a 3-time Abu Dhabi champion, obviously. And like, and we were talking about this and, you know, like think about just think about the Rashard Brooks situation, the guy in Atlanta who falls asleep at the wheel and then he strikes, taser, all that. It's like, again, exact same. I mean, not exactly the same as George Floyd, but he's behaving that way because he's terrified to go back to jail because jail's hell on earth. And so, you know, he knows like, it's not like he's just going to get a little slap on the wrist. He's going back to jail. So he wigs out. But the bottom line is the cop had his wrist, like a person who knows jiu-jitsu. There's no scenario where if you're starting with a guy's wrist behind his back, that he's going to be able to take your taser and shoot it at you. And that means that whole thing never happens and the guy's still alive. And the cop's not charged with murder. The entire thing is completely avoidable with just common sense, basic training for a police officer who you know is going to be engaged in these kind of situations all day long.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you know? Agreed. Yeah, definitely. I feel like continued jiu-jitsu training should be necessary. I feel like there shouldn't be a cop that isn't at least a purple belt.
Totally agree.
Right. Like,
also, it would deter people from being violent with cops because, like, they would just know it's like, you know, jiu-jitsu is like a fucking superpower. You know, like
I mean, it honestly is.
There's just no like you're not gonna win. Like you're not gonna win.
Yeah, you're not.
Also, they're not gonna have to shoot you. You know, or even like you know, tackle, like even though jiu-jitsu by definition is a violent thing, it's like you can restrain a person rather than picking them up and then slamming them on the ground, potentially hitting their head like on pavement, whatever. It's like you literally you train them into being capable of being a better fighter, but it's actually for the protection of the people that they're going to be interacting with.
Totally. Which makes a whole lot of sense because like if I don't know how to fight at all, I don't know how to use my body in order to protect myself, in order to restrain people as a weapon, well then and then I'm put in a position where conflict is like an eventuality, like it's inevitable. Well, when I see that conflict, I'm going to be in a fucking panic state. How the fuck am I going to think properly? How am I going to make smart decisions? I'm not going to. I'm going to fucking revert back to just self-protection in whatever ways possible, which is just fucking, now weapons are coming out, right? Be it a taser, be it a gun, be it fucking mace, whatever. It's not de-escalation, I'll tell you that. Yep. Right? If I have the ability, and I've been in situations like this as like a bouncer or whatever, or just like trying to protect somebody, I've been in situations where people really, really want to fucking fight me or want that escalation, and I'm still able to de-escalate the conflict just because I'm fucking calm and I have my wits about me, and I know that whatever the fuck they do, I'm going to be able to deal with it.
Exactly. It's like, because you're in a position where you're like, it's my choice how this goes. It's about control. Like it's about control, because like like I don't need to size this guy up unless this guy, like in your case especially, it's like unless this guy secretly is the fucking Japanese fucking MMA champion at a weight class too higher, like that. I am at no risk here. Like it's like it's just a thing where they were talking like my buddy Christian, who's really good buddies with Dean, was talking about that, how he said that he's seen Dean de-escalate situations that are just like, where the guys are trying real hard who don't know who he is, because he likes to go out. They didn't know who he is. And but I actually, it's funny, I asked Dean, I was like, have you ever had to use jiu-jitsu full throttle in a life or death scenario? And he's like, yeah, once. And he was in Mexico. Dude, he speaks like 8 languages, but
oh, that's cool.
But he was in Mexico at a club, and I don't know, like talked to some girl, whatever. But anyways, he gets confronted by these group of 7 guys that he finds out later are like cartel guys. He didn't know at the time. One of them was bent out of shape that he was talking to the girl. One of them hit him with a bottle from the side. And the other guy that was right in front of him who had started it kind of came forward, and he said that he took the guy's arm, put him in an arm lock, and he said he just shattered his elbow, shoulder, and arm like that. And then the guy screamed, which got all of them to kind of come off, and then the bouncers kind of broke it up, and then he went downstairs, and then the bouncers kind of snuck him out while these guys were waiting on the other side. But it's, have you ever met Dean?
I don't think I've met him personally, no.
He's fucking huge. Is the reason why he's like, my buddy is 240 pounds. He's built, and he went like this, and they held their wrists up like this just to demonstrate how much bigger Dean's hands and wrists are than his. And like, I mean, Dean's a fucking gorilla, man. Like, in the, where if he got a hold of you, you are never getting away. Like, never. I was trying to imagine him going full throttle on my shoulder. I'm like, Jesus.
No thanks.
Nightmare.
He's a fucking monster for sure.
Yeah.
Big
have you ever had to go full throttle with any, like, since you were you?
Yeah, it actually happened like 2014. I had an altercation with one of my neighbors who I don't believe was like mentally stable. Haitian dude, and there was several altercations that led up to it. Like I'd leave my apartment and he'd be standing there and like standing in his doorway, which is like I had to walk past his doorway. He'd be like standing there like looking out, and then would continue walking, and then he would open the door fully, showing that he's got a hammer in his hand, right? Like just so one day we're going down, it was actually Valentine's Day. I'm going with one of my friends down to meet this girl at this bar in Montreal. And she came down to my apartment because she lived, my friend lived just up from my apartment, like in the same building. She came down and she's like, oh, that fucking crazy dude is standing outside your door, looking at your door with a fucking fire extinguisher in his hand. I'm like, what the fuck? And we have to leave, right? So we're
you and your girl?
Sorry?
Was it like you said we? It's like you and your lady or something?
Yeah, me and she's a female friend of mine. And then so we go out my door and he's gone, right? So I'm like, okay, dope, we can just fucking leave, don't have to deal with the psycho. But then the exit to the building, he's standing right there. And he had put down the fire extinguisher at this point. And we walking past, and he's just like fucking grilling me like so bad. And I'm like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Say something." I'm like, something? Like, what the fuck, right?
He's like, "Say something." You're like, "I don't want to break your arm."
Yeah, right?
I don't want to do it.
This is what it led to, right? So he ends up going back up towards his apartment. And then I'm like standing there like, what the fuck? Then he starts coming back down with like his hands behind his back, like he's got something. So I'm not going to turn my back on him. I'm backing out of the building, and just like fucking what the fuck. My friend had actually waited, so he went past her so she could see what was in his hands. She said it looked like he's got keys or something, but she couldn't see. So he got close, actually. He got pretty close, and I'd like measure him. I like measured his shoulder or his chest, like, stay back, man. Like, I don't want to fight you. I'm trained. Like, I don't want to hurt you. Leave me alone. I'm a professional fighter. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. I'm a professional fighter. Leave me alone. And then he leaves for a second, and then we start walking down the sidewalk, and he starts coming back again. And again, same thing. I measured. No, measured. No, leave me alone. Measured. No, leave me alone. Right? And then he wasn't able to breach that distance on me, but he started like head faking me, like fainting. And I still don't know exactly what's behind his back. He still had one hand behind his back. So I'm like, this guy is going to like try to stab me or something. I don't fucking know. So as soon as he started fainting, that's what I deemed to be a situation that I can no longer control. I can no longer just walk away from. So I hit him with like a 60% right hand, and he didn't drop. He like got hit, and then he started coming back into me again. And then I hit him with the left hook, and he like fucking snoring. And thank God though. Thank God it was the winter. Well, that's what I was about to say. It was the winter, so he fell into a big ass snowbank.
Thank God.
But if not, he would have fallen off the curb. Yeah, and he's gonna head dive that fucking concrete. And now I'm like, I had a witness, thank God, but like, this is just why
even
it's so
still,
fucking
dude,
dangerous.
Witness or not, like, that's my nightmare scenario. That is absolutely my nightmare scenario. Is like, because it was kind of like, so I actually, like, I used to get into a lot of shit like when I was, you know, kind of like 18 to like 23, 24, and then I trained a lot. And it was, and from right when I trained, I never, unless I'm forgetting, fought outside of like a sanctioned thing ever again. Like, cause you know, it's like the first time you like, you know, first time you sleep or at least me, like first time I slept someone with a glove on, like, I don't know what it was. Cause it's not like I had knocked a person out before, like prior, but there was something about it when I was getting older, but like, and I saw that and I just remember thinking like, dude, if that's concrete, he's dead. And then I was just like, I'm never.
Yeah, it's fucking terrifying.
And simultaneously, I met my wife and actually had a reason to be like extra concerned about like not fucking my life up, you know. But
yeah, for sure.
But yeah, like, you know, and in fights like, you know, Darren Till against Jorge Masvidal, you watch that fight, like, you know, it's like, I mean, he's fucking, that's a curtain call if he's on pavement right there. Like,
yeah, dude, 100%.
What about fights? Do you watch a lot of the fights when you're not fighting?
I did for quite some time, but now not so much. I'll watch, like, if there's somebody that I'm really interested in, I'll usually watch, or if like the whole team's getting together, or like a bunch of my friends want to watch, then I will. But I'm usually busy, man. I'm usually like involved with like different things, usually like activist type things.
Yeah.
Usually take up my weekends. So
you're all in.
Well, not completely all in. I still have a career.
No, but I mean, you're heavy in the you're heavy in the activist thing.
I want to make change, man. Like I feel like I've been fighting for nothing for a whole lot of time, and even when I was fighting for nothing, I still wanted to fight for something. So I was trying to like organize a union and like lobby for the Ali Act and all that type of stuff, which obviously didn't go very well.
Purpose matters, man.
Yeah, dude. And so I feel like I have these physical gifts, and I want to actually use them for the right thing. Like I've always kind of been a protector, and I feel like this is something that warrants those gifts to be used to protect the people that are vulnerable or have a more difficult protecting themselves.
I feel like the universe is trying to tell me something, because like I again, and this is strictly because like I have, you know, many personal friends who are police. I've been finding myself kind of like I don't know, like feeling like, you know, just watching police overall get vilified, and it's been aggravating me because I know that most of these cops are not bad people. And then last week, I was Saturday, I was in Napa and I was rapping out with this guy. And he's like, like my kids ran up on him, and you know, he's there with his wife and his dog. And he's a black guy, and we start rapping out. And he's a DA in a city. I don't want to say his name, and like, but he's a district attorney. And he had actually been responsible for prosecuting cops with bad shoots. And I'm talking like, this is like a city that one of the cities that he was in charge of is a city that has a lot of shit, you know? And so he was actually the guy who would choose, are we going to prosecute this cop or not? And obviously he's a black guy. So like, as far as I'm concerned, he's basically the most credible source of information I could possibly have for, you know, the validity of some of this stuff, et cetera. And he changed my mind on some stuff. Like he told stories about himself getting fucked with by police when he's the fucking district attorney, you know, like, and I also asked him about that Atlanta shoot, because I was pretty confident that Atlanta shoot was not, I mean, I still, I don't know, like murder feels a little bit strong, but like he convinced me that it wasn't a good shoot actually. Because anyway, I mean, you know, but I don't know. The bottom line is like, like I try to go into everything open-minded, and he's as credible a source as I think I can expect to get. And he kind of, you know.
Yeah, there's a problem, bro. There's a real problem. There's a real problem just because of the difference in how police act depending on who they're acting on, right? Like, it's usually, depending on the population, it's usually the majority minority that has the worst time, right? So up here, yeah, cops are not great to Black people, but they're way worse to First Nations and Indigenous people. In the States, I would imagine that they're probably not the greatest to Indigenous people, but especially if you're talking about the South, if you're Black, it's like, bro, some of the things that I've been seeing on these, in like live footage, right? Yeah, on Instagram, like some of the actions of the cops against the protesters, dude, it's insane when compared to how cops act against protesters who are Caucasian. It's like,
oh, dude, I don't know about that. I've seen them beating the shit out of some white girls too.
I've seen that too. Seen that too. But they're there protesting for Black people. Whereas when it's white people protesting for white people, they can do pretty much whatever the fuck they want. Walk around with fucking loaded guns and like storm fucking government buildings, and like nothing gets done.
Yeah, that's true in some cases too. But now there's that group, the NFAC, and they're rolling around with fucking guns too. And like, I just think like guns are a pretty big fucking equalizer.
NFAC, fuck yeah. Yep. Totally.
And even like, if you've got guns, like you've got a fucking gun. If you're legally carrying it, like that is the equalizer. I mean, that is why people, I mean, I don't know where you sit on guns. I have guns. And the reason for that is because I don't ever want to rely on another man to protect my family. And the reason why people think that it's okay for them to not have a gun is because they know that they can call some other dude who will come with a gun to protect their family. And so I'm like, I'm not going to sit there and just like assume that's always going to be the case, because it might not always be the fucking case, you know?
Yeah, totally.
I've got daughters. I like, if all of a sudden there's no police, there's no enforcement, and there's a reason why I need to be able to keep people off my fucking daughters. They're, you know, that.
Yeah, for sure. No, I don't have guns, but I would like to get guns. Especially, I don't have a lot of trust in government. I don't have a lot of trust in the state. and I don't have a lot of trust that they have my best interests at heart. So yes, we need guns to protect our children from other citizens that are bad, but I also feel like if society is armed, then oppressive regimes,
I agree with you 100%.
are way harder to establish.
Yeah, that is literally like the basis of the Second Amendment argument in the United States is like, is that exactly? And it's funny because like, you know, like the liberal side, they're like, do you know how ridiculous that sounds? Because like what they'll say, they're like, this is our protection against utter government tyranny. They're like, do you know how ridiculous that sounds? And you're like, do you know how ridiculous it sounds for you to not understand that if no one else has guns, that they can literally do whatever they want? Like, it's like anything they want. Like, you have absolutely no recourse. That's why I look at the anti-gun thing is interesting, because the most vocal people generally are completely ignorant about guns. It's almost funny. Like when they'll talk about them, they'll say the wrong things, like where, you know, whatever power is behind it that is trying to de-arm people, they clearly are using a fucking idiot. And it's not a person who's educated and trying to, you know, I just think that there's always like this like, I don't know, some like a combination of ill intentions and just people being fucking retards. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like there's always a level of stupidity. You know, one thing, so I gotta jump in 3 minutes, but one last thing I was gonna ask you about is this. Like, so I think that a lot of communication in this country gets lost in translation because, okay, so what am I trying to say here? So I think that people are mixing up arguments because it looks like they're the same argument when they're not at all. Like, or because some of the same people are involved in this thing, which is a real thing. And then there are people over here who are saying these ridiculous things that are utter fucking nonsense. And so people are going to tune out the thing that actually matters because it's the same people who are delivering that message, who are saying like that, you know, the same people that are like, oh yeah, a transgender female should definitely be able to compete against biological females in the Olympics. And you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? And they're like, that's not fair. That's not fair for the, and then they say something that's that makes perfect sense for us to discuss, but you've already dismissed I mean, I don't know if that's a good example of the transgender thing.
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, don't mix up all the nonsense and then confuse the issue so that smart people can discuss real issues that actually need attention. Does that make sense?
Yeah. The transgender thing is so difficult to navigate because honestly, the only way that transgender people and trans people are able to have fair competition if there is like a separate trans league, right? Like because of the bone structure, you're never going to have the same power levels as someone who was born as a woman. But then because of all the hormone replacement, you're never going to have the same power levels as somebody who was born as a man, right? And is still a man, still producing all that testosterone. So they're in this weird middle place. And it's really unfortunate that we don't have something that will serve them. Yeah. But we don't right now.
Yeah, it sucks, and it's like maybe as not like as they feel more comfortable, kind of living their life kind of publicly. Maybe there are more. It'll just there'll be more of them to do things like that. I just I have 3 daughters, so I'm I mean, not that like it's so I just am thinking about like, okay, so my daughter was about, and then I don't know. I mean, it's not, I mean, people make a bigger deal about it than it is because it's not really that widespread, but that's just one of those ones that just seems so common sense that it's like, I don't know. Like I never even thought about it until Joe Rogan was talking about the Fallon Fox thing where
Ashley, she's a buddy. Yeah, it's cool that she beat her.
That is cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. Speaks to her and like how fucking tough she is. But yeah, I don't see that as like a fair competition. But it's that I don't know what the immediate solution to that is. Really, I don't think it's fair to anybody, no matter which way it goes, unless we can create some sort of special like additional division to the gender roles that are currently happening. Because two-spirit people exist throughout the world, and I feel like we're starting to, as a society, be more accepting of that, which is fucking fantastic, because pretty much every single indigenous society that's ever existed has revered two-spirit people, including all of the nations whose land we're currently living on and occupying. So I feel like as a society, as we get better, then there will be more people that feel less fear about being true about who they are. And then we could hopefully create something specifically for these people so that they're not stuck in the fucking middle.
I just think, I mean, and honestly, like, that's funny that you bring that up, because, and then I actually really got to jump because I'm a minute late, but I think what my issue more is just about people's approach, where it's like, because I will embrace any way that any person wants to live, no matter what. But at the same time, like, I don't like the idea that someone can, voice an opinion that maybe isn't even that controversial or whatever, and then they get fired from their job. Like, I do not like that at all. That, like, really genuinely bothers me. Unless like they say something just outright, just overtly shithead racist, then of course, like, whatever. But, like, a person who voiced an opinion that, I don't know, that just isn't, I just feel like attacking people is not the way to change people's minds anyway,
Yeah, I'm not really sure exactly how the best way to go about changing people's minds. I feel like the best way to go about it is immersing them into a situation that they're fearful of, or that they have hatred towards.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah. But I also feel like holding people accountable for their shit is very important. And if the shit should be is deserving of it, I mean. Yeah, definitely. Which a lot of, like, I've seen some fucking vile shit that's been said recently by employees of this company or that company or this school board or whatever, and those people have lost their jobs because of it. And I feel like that was fucking valid. If they were my employee, right? Like, I have a gym. If they were my employee and I heard them saying that shit, fucking bye.
Well, I guess so. That we're not disagreeing there at all. Actually, it just, I think it's a threshold of, like, like, I'll give you an example. So when, I don't remember what month this was, but it was probably right around George Floyd, and the woman who's the actress from Slumdog Millionaire, sent out a tweet that said, she said, I support all, whatever, something very supportive of the movement, right? Yeah. And then people went and they dogpiled her in their responses, and they were like, were you supportive of Black Lives when you were promoting a skin lightening cream? And what they were talking about was she had done a marketing or an advertising campaign for a cream. It's not a skin lightening cream like you're ashamed of being Black. It was for evening out your complexion if you have, like, freckles. And so I'm like, dude, shit, that's just completely mischaracterizing what she was doing. Like, she's, totally. I mean, you know what I mean? And it was like, cancel her. And I'm like, dude, she literally said that she's supportive of the movement. Why are you looking for a reason to shit on her? I don't understand that.
Unfortunately, like, Twitter, but I don't go there ever. It just links to my opinion of Twitter is that it's full of people.
I got you.
Okay, it's full of people that are looking for something to hate, right? So anything that goes out to Twitter, you will find a large contingency of people who fucking hate it and are gonna just throw shade and fucking puke their own fucking leaking wounds on you, right? So yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's just part of the fucking internet horrible situation we're all existing in.
All right, my man. This was really, really fun. Better than I expected. Let's we should do like a fight companion sometime or something.
Yeah, man. I'm down. Yeah,
awesome.
for sure.
Good luck. Thanks, bud.
Yeah. Thanks, bro. Peace out.
Talk soon.